was Allegretto, number 17 from Giuliani's Op.50. And follow the lesson for free. We'll be talking about a number of fingering things and some phrasing ideas. But if you're interested, I do have an edition of all 32 works in Giuliani's Op.50. There's a link for that in the description. So this is a very welcome piece after so many major key pieces. We get a minor key piece in G minor. So very welcome mood change to the set. And a little bit more difficult in terms of fingering and just in terms of the bar chords that you have to do and just some navigating. So we'll mainly be talking about that. It's very texture oriented. There's melodic material, but whether you include all that. And then when he returns, this is the same material at bar 9. So you kind of have this bar 1 to 8 is the kind of theme. Bar 9 to 16 is pretty much the same material. And then he dives away from that just a little bit. So you can practice the upper line on its own. When he gets into bar 9, it's a little bit different, but it's essentially the same melody there. So practice that on its own and get the phrasing the way you want it and then add in all the notes. But I think one of the important things in this piece is that because there's so many 3-voice chords and even 4-voice chords, that your dynamic shaping is a little bit important. If you just pound out the chords, you know, it's too blunt and doesn't have enough direction to the line. So you have to ease into it. Lots of like growth in the middle of the phrase and some tapering on the outside. So kind of a growth and then taper. Gives it a lot more emotional content, a lot more forward movement through the phrase, and just it gets it away from the percussive attack of the guitar. You just have to do something so that it feels more like a musical line rather than block chord, block chord, block chord. But let's just do a walk through the piece and we'll talk about some of the fingering and other concerns. Starts off fairly straightforward. Just make sure the balance in your hand that you're trying to bring out the top note, and just instead of playing harder with that note, just think of a deeper follow through in towards the hand. That's usually enough to kind of correct the balance. And those rests, you can just use it as a pre-plant in the right hand. Not too difficult of a bar chord there. Then this one, I release the bar chord halfway through the bar. And it would be great to play this with 3-2-1, but because the second finger's on the second string there, then you can just slide it up 1 fret and you at least have the security of that finger. You just have to worry about getting those 2 fingers. If your hand's misaligned, you won't be able to reach that note. But even a few millimeters, bringing that knuckle in, aligning the hand, you can reach that note, no problem. But certainly that's something that puts the piece in the intermediate level instead of the more beginner side, right? So making sure your hand alignment is correct will allow you to get these chords. Bar 9 is repeated material but arpeggiated. Whenever you have a repeated note, you have to do some growth and dynamic growth to it, otherwise it seems too static. You know, but a repeated note with some growth can have a lot of emotional impact, almost Beethoven-esque. It's so simple yet can feel very persistent and have a lot of impact. Use the 4th finger on this one. So bar 17, you slide the 2nd finger out, but use the 4th finger there That way the third finger can get this. I'll talk about this in a second. So measure 20, it's really your call what you want to do. I'm using my third finger because I like to have my fourth finger free to kind of align to get this D down here. Some editions use the fourth finger and then slur the D, but the bass note in the original is clearly sustained. So the more accurate way of playing the score would be to sustain the bass voice, just like throughout the rest of the piece, and play it with 4-3-1-2. But I have seen editions kind of break the rules to make it easier. You could just use your fourth finger in bar 20 and then just jump it over, but I just don't like the feeling of that so much. But you have to jump regardless, so that's the way I chose to do it. However you accomplish it will be fine. As long as you get enough sustain out of that final note, you can do it with other fingers. You know, just like that extra second of sustain before lifting and jumping to the next thing. It's near the end of the piece. There's a little bit of rid involved. It's not the end of the world if you clip that note a little bit, but giving it just enough sustain that it gets implanted into the room and reverberates through the room and gets implanted into the listener's ear, you can make that jump regardless of what finger you use. But I do close all that. In the end, it's a very small, condensed thing, so you just have to play it slowly at first. Make sure you're sustaining notes for as close to their full value as possible, and then you just calmly but quickly make the shift to the next chord shape. Learning how to do that is a really important skill. Gets you through a lot of things, a lot of situations on the guitar where you do have to lift your fingers off. But the idea of not clipping a note but making sure it has a little bit of sustain, what you end up with is more of a sense of some like micro phrasing. So like you carry the listener through the phrase, the micro phrase, and then the next one. It just seems musical rather than like a technical hiccup. So we're just kind of combining technique and musicality and making sure it works well together.